I found my daughter sleeping on the street and froze. Her husband had sold their home and married his mistress years ago, leaving her with absolutely nothing. I took her in. The next day, I went to his apartment building. When he opened the door, what I did, he will never forget. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? That's the sanitized version, the one you'd share with your preacher or your boss. The reality is darker, sharper, and runs deeper than any blow or shove could ever reach. The truth is that when I saw Morgan huddled on that filthy sidewalk, something inside me broke and then reformed, harder, colder, crueler. If the world wants a villain, fine, I'll be that villain. Just make sure my grandchild eats. The night shift at Kowalski Freight ends at 11:45, which means I'm usually on the road by midnight, driving through Cleveland's industrial guts while the rest of the city pretends to sleep. I've been doing this run for 3 years now, ever since I lost my own company, my house, and most of my dignity to a stack of papers I should have read closer. Tonight felt like every other night. Cold April drizzle, empty streets slicked with oil rainbows under the sodium lights. The kind of weather that makes your bones ache if you're pushing 60 and spent 30 years hauling freight before some desk job tried to finish you off. I took my usual route down Superior Avenue, past the boarded-up factories and the check-cashing spots with their windows barred. There's a stretch near East 55th where the streetlights barely work, and the sidewalk becomes a dumping ground for whatever the bars don't want to handle. I've seen plenty of drunks there, plenty of lost kids, plenty of people the city forgot about before they even hit bottom. So when my headlights caught something huddled between an ATM and a row of trash bins, I almost didn't stop. Almost. But something about the shape made me tap the brakes. The way the person was folded up, knees to chest, head down. The jacket, thin, wrong for the weather. I pulled over, hazards on, and grabbed my flashlight from the glove box. The beam swept across garbage bags, a broken umbrella, a puddle of something I didn't want to identify. Then it hit a face. My heart stopped. Morgan, my daughter. 32 years old, dirty, bruised along one cheekbone, shivering so hard her teeth were chattering. Her hair, used to be blonde and shiny, the kind she'd spend an hour styling every morning, was matted and greasy, stuck to her forehead. She had one shoe on. One shoe, the other foot was bare, the toes curled and red from the cold. I was out of the truck before I knew I'd moved. Morgan. She flinched, looked up. Her eyes took a second to focus, like she'd been somewhere far away and was struggling to come back. Dad? Her voice cracked on the word. What the hell are you doing out here? I crouched down, trying to keep my voice steady, even though my hands were shaking. Where's Trevor? Where's your car? Why aren't you... I'm fine. She tried to smile. It was the saddest thing I'd ever seen. Just waiting for someone. Go home, Dad, I'm fine. You're not fine. You're sleeping on the street. I'm not sleeping. I'm just... Morgan. I put my hand on her shoulder. She flinched again, harder this time. Talk to me, right now. For a long moment, she just stared at me. Then something broke behind her eyes, and the words started pouring out. He changed the locks, threw my stuff out, canceled my cards. I went to the house, and the key didn't work, and there was a notice on the door saying the property was sold, and I didn't even know. Dad, I didn't know he sold it. I thought we still owned it together, but it was all in his name, and I... She stopped, gulped air, started crying. I didn't say anything. Couldn't. My brain was too busy cataloging details, the way it used to back when I ran logistics for my own company. Before Trevor Hayes walked into our lives with his white teeth and his real estate dreams and his promises that he'd take care of everything. I pulled off my jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. She was so thin. When did she get so thin? Come on, I said. You're coming home with me. I don't want to be a burden. Morgan, get in the truck. She didn't argue. I helped her up, and she limped on that one bare foot across the sidewalk. I opened the passenger door, and she climbed in, moving like an old woman, like someone who'd been beaten down so many times they forgot how to stand up straight. I got behind the wheel and started driving. Didn't ask questions. Just drove through the empty streets while Morgan stared out the window, my jacket pulled tight around her shoulders. The silence was thick enough to drown in. I kept seeing flashes of memory. Morgan, at 27, sitting across from me at a coffee shop, pushing papers toward me with that bright, hopeful smile. Dad, Trevor says you deserve to rest. Let us handle the business restructuring. It'll be better for everyone. Trevor, shaking my hand, his grip firm and confident. We'll take care of you, Harlan. Family looks out for family. Me, signing those papers because my daughter asked me to. because I was tired and the freight business was grinding me down and I wanted to believe someone else could handle it. 3 months later, I had no company. 6 months after that, no house. Everything transferred, sold, restructured into entities I didn't even understand until it was too late. And through it all, Morgan had smiled and told me it was for the best. I glanced over at her now. She was staring at her hands in her lap, the dashboard lights making her face look hollow. "He sold the house, Dad," she whispered. "Years ago. Married her. I didn't even know." My hands tightened on the wheel. "Who?" "Kendra, the PR girl. I was just the leftover." The word hung in the air between us like smoke. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? That I'd warned her? That I'd seen this coming? That every instinct I had screamed not to trust Trevor Hayes, but I'd ignored them because my daughter loved him? None of that would help her now. So I just drove us home, through the rain, while my daughter shivered in the passenger seat and my mind started doing what it does best, turning grief into data and data into a plan. My apartment isn't much. Second floor of a converted warehouse in Tremont, 1 bedroom and a galley kitchen with linoleum that was probably ugly even when it was new. But it's mine, paid for with dispatcher wages and the scraps of my savings that Trevor didn't manage to touch. I got Morgan inside and pointed her toward the bathroom. "Shower's hot. Towels are in the cabinet." She nodded and shuffled off. I heard the water start running a minute later, and I stood in my kitchen listening to the pipes rattle and feeling about 100 years old. The shower ran for 20 minutes. When Morgan finally came out, she was wearing an old sweater I'd kept, one of Patricia's from back before the divorce. It was too big on her, the sleeves hanging past her hands. She looked smaller somehow. Younger, like the girl she'd been before Trevor, before the money, before everything turned sideways. I'd made coffee, strong, the way I like it. Morgan sat down at my kitchen table and wrapped both hands around the mug, staring into it like she was reading tea leaves. "Start from the beginning," I said. She took a breath. Let it out slow. "You remember when I first brought Trevor home? 6 years ago?" I remembered. He'd been charming, confident, full of big ideas about urban development and revitalization. Morgan had been glowing, proud to show him off. And I'd been cautious. Something about his smile didn't reach his eyes, but I'd kept my mouth shut because my daughter was happy. "He told me he wanted to build something," Morgan said. "Not just for himself, for us. He had all these plans, and I believed him. When he said you were working too hard, that you deserved to rest, I believed that too." "So you helped him convince me to sign?" "Yes." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't know what those papers really meant. Trevor showed me simplified versions, told me it was just restructuring, that you'd still own everything but we'd handle the day-to-day operations. I didn't read the fine print. I didn't—" "Keep going," she swallowed. "Once the company was in his name, things changed. He started making decisions without asking me, selling off routes, restructuring contracts. Then he said we needed to sell the house, your house, to finance a big development deal. He promised we'd buy something better. Together." "But you didn't." "No, the money went into one of his shell companies. He bought a condo downtown, but only his name was on the deed. He said it was for tax purposes. I believed him." Of course she did. Trevor was good at making people believe him. Morgan's hands were shaking now. "He started spending more time with Kendra. She was his PR manager, handles image consulting for developers, helps them look good to investors. She's pretty, polished. Everything I wasn't." "You saw them together?" "I saw messages on his phone. Late-night texts about meetings that didn't make sense. Photos of them at events where I wasn't invited. When I asked about it, he said I was being paranoid, that I was embarrassing him with my jealousy." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "Tell me about Kendra." Morgan's laugh was bitter. "She's 30, lives on social media. Everything's about image with her. The right clothes, the right restaurants, the right people to be seen with. She thought it was hilarious that Trevor came from nothing, that his father-in-law was just a trucker with delusions." "She said that?" "I saw screenshots. There was a private group chat. Trevor, Kendra, some of their developer friends. They called me the starter wife. Joked about how I wore cheap dresses to events. How I still talked like I was from the old neighborhood." She stopped, pressed her palms against her eyes. "Trevor told me I was imagining things, that I was stressed and needed to relax. He started pushing me to stop taking my medication, said it was affecting my mood, making me paranoid. I found out later he told people I was unstable, that I had episodes." "When did you find out about the marriage?" 3 weeks ago." Her voice cracked. I came back to the condo after visiting Mom, and my key didn't work. There was a note taped to the door. Legal letterhead. It said the property had been sold, and I needed to remove my belongings from the storage unit downstairs within 48 hours. He didn't even tell you himself? No. I called him, and he didn't answer. I went to his office, and security wouldn't let me in. Finally got him on the phone, and he said, God, Dad. He said it so casually. He said the marriage had been over for years, that he'd filed for an annulment through some legal loophole, and I should have seen it coming. Annulment. Something about fraud or misrepresentation. His lawyers found a way. I don't even understand how it's legal, but apparently it is. And Kendra? She was already his wife. Had been for months. They had a ceremony in the Bahamas that got posted all over Instagram. I didn't even know until someone from my old office sent me a link. I sat back in my chair, processing. Trevor hadn't just left Morgan. He'd erased her. Methodically, legally, completely. What about money? Nothing. Everything was in his name or tied up in corporate structures I can't touch. My bank account was joint, but he drained it the same day he changed the locks. I had maybe $300 in cash, and that ran out 2 weeks ago. Why didn't you call me? She looked up, and I saw shame in her eyes. Because you were right, Dad, about everything, and I helped him take it all from you. How could I come crying to you after that? Before I could answer, she stood up fast and bolted toward the bathroom. I heard her retching, the sound sharp and painful in the quiet apartment. I gave her a minute, then followed. She was on her knees in front of the toilet, hair falling in her face, shoulders heaving. How long has this been happening? Few weeks. I thought it was stress, or bad food from the shelter. I opened the cabinet under the sink, digging past old cleaning supplies and a broken hairdryer. Found what I was looking for in the back, a pregnancy test kit, still in the box. Patricia had left it here years ago. Probably expired, but it might still work. I handed it to Morgan. She stared at it. Dad, I can't be... Take it. She did. I waited outside the bathroom door, listening to the apartment's silence. The hum of the fridge, the drip of the kitchen faucet, the distant sound of traffic on the street below. When the door opened, Morgan was holding the plastic stick in her trembling hand. 2 lines. Clear as day. Oh, God, she whispered. Oh, God. Oh, God. I took the test from her before she dropped it, looked at those 2 lines and felt the world shift underneath me. My daughter, homeless, abandoned, betrayed, and pregnant. With Trevor Hayes' child. Morgan sat on the edge of my couch, staring at nothing. The pregnancy test was on the coffee table between us, lying there like evidence at a crime scene. It's not possible, she said for the 3rd time. Trevor said he told me he had a procedure. Before we even got together, he said he'd gotten it done because he didn't want kids interfering with his career. A vasectomy? That's what he implied. And he made me stop my contraception months ago. Said the hormones were making me moody, that it would be better for both of us if I went off them. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. I thought he was being caring, concerned about my health. I didn't say what I was thinking, that Trevor had been lying, manipulating, playing games with her body the same way he'd played games with everything else. Instead, I asked, How far along? I don't know. Maybe 3 months? I've been so stressed I didn't notice when my cycle stopped. I just thought it was everything else. The homelessness, the fear, not eating regular meals. 3 months. That meant the baby was conceived right around the time Trevor was finalizing whatever legal magic had made Morgan disappear from his life. The timing made my stomach turn. We need to tell your mother. Morgan's head snapped up. Mom's going to lose her mind. Probably, but she needs to know. Patricia answered on the 2nd ring. Her voice was groggy. I'd woken her up. Harlan? It's 1 a.m. What's wrong? I need you to come over. It's about Morgan. The grogginess vanished. Is she okay? What happened? Just come, please. She was at my door 20 minutes later, still in her scrubs from the clinic, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She took one look at Morgan on the couch and went straight to her, wrapping her up in the kind of hug only a mother can give. Baby, what happened to you? Morgan started crying again. Patricia held her, rocking slightly, making soft, soothing sounds. I stood in my kitchen doorway, feeling useless and angry and more tired than I'd felt in years. When Morgan finally pulled back, Patricia saw the test on the table. I watched understanding cross her face. The shock, then the anger, then something harder and more protective. Trevor? Morgan nodded. Patricia's jaw tightened. She'd never liked Trevor, had told me more than once that something about him felt wrong. But Morgan had been so sure, so in love, and eventually we'd both stopped pushing. Where is he now? Patricia's voice was quiet, dangerous. Living downtown with his new wife, I said. Kendra Sloan, PR consultant. They've been together for at least a year, probably longer. Patricia looked at me. You knew about this? Found out tonight when I picked Morgan up off the street. That got her attention. Off the street? I told her. Everything, the whole ugly story, from the sidewalk to the shower to the test. Patricia listened, her expression getting colder with every word. When I finished, she said, We're calling a lawyer. Already ahead of you. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Owen Blake. Owen and I went back 15 years to when he'd helped me with some contract disputes in the freight business. He'd since shifted into real estate and family law, building a practice that specialized in messy situations. He answered on the fourth ring, sounding alert despite the hour. Harlan, this better be good. It's not. I need help with a family case. My daughter. Listening. I laid it out for him. Quick, efficient, no emotion. Just the facts. Abandonment, asset stripping, marriage annulled through legal manipulation, pregnant woman left with nothing while her ex-husband lives in a luxury condo with his new wife. Owen was quiet for a moment. Then, he made sure she has nothing? Nothing. Good. Good. Judges love that, especially when there's a pregnancy involved. Give me until morning. I'll pull together what we need to file for emergency support and start divorce proceedings. This Trevor Hayes, he's a developer, right? Public figure? Getting there. Even better. Men like him care about their reputation. We can use that. He paused. Harlan, this is going to get ugly. You prepared for that? I looked at Morgan, curled up against her mother on my old couch. Thought about her on that sidewalk. About Trevor changing the locks and emptying bank accounts and posting vacation photos with Kendra while my daughter starved. Yeah, I said, I'm prepared. After I hung up, Patricia made tea. We sat around my kitchen table, the three of us, just like old times, except everything was broken now. I'm scared, Morgan whispered. Patricia took her hand. I know, baby, but you're not alone. You've got me and your dad, and we're going to make sure this baby has everything it needs. I don't want Dad doing something he'll regret. They both looked at me. I thought about telling them I'd be careful, that I'd stick to legal channels, that I wouldn't do anything stupid, but I was tired of lying, tired of playing nice, tired of watching people like Trevor Hayes take everything and face no consequences. Trevor took my business, I said quietly. He took my home. He took your life, Morgan. Now he's going to buy it all back, monthly, with interest, until that kid turns 18. Patricia frowned. Harlan. I'm not going to hurt him. I'm not going to break any laws, but I'm going to make sure he pays. Every month, every year, until my grandchild is grown and Trevor Hayes remembers what it cost him to throw a pregnant woman out on the street. Morgan started to speak, but I stood up. Get some rest, both of you. Morning's coming fast and we've got work to do. I walked to my bedroom window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, in a glass tower overlooking the lake, Trevor Hayes was sleeping next to his new wife. Comfortable, secure, confident that he'd gotten away with everything. He had no idea what was coming. I smiled in the dark. The building where Trevor lived was called the Apex. 27 stories of steel and glass on the edge of downtown, the kind of place that charged more for a parking spot than most people paid in rent. I delivered freight to buildings like this back in the day, knew them inside and out, knew their rhythms, their blind spots, their weaknesses. It was just past 2 a.m. when I pulled up to the loading dock. The security shift changed at 2:15, a 15-minute window where coverage got sloppy. I'd counted on that. I grabbed a generic cardboard box from my truck, empty but the right size to look like a late delivery, and walked toward the service entrance. Kept my head down, moved with purpose. The key to blending in is confidence. Act like you belong, and most people won't question it. The loading dock was deserted. I found the service elevator and hit the button for the 23rd floor. The doors opened onto a quiet hallway. Thick carpet, recessed lighting, that new building smell. Unit 23E was at the end, overlooking the lake. Of course it was. I knocked, waited, heard footsteps inside. A pause. Probably checking the peephole. Then the chain rattled and the door swung open. Trevor Hayes stood there in expensive pajama pants and a t-shirt, his hair messed up from sleep, holding his phone like he'd been expecting a food delivery. When he saw me, his expression went from confused to annoyed in about half a second. What the hell are you doing here, Harlan? We need to talk. No, we don't. Get out before I call security. I put my foot in the door. Your wife is sleeping on the street. Did you know that? Something flickered in his eyes, surprise maybe, or guilt. But it was gone fast, replaced by that smooth, corporate nothing that men like him wear like armor. Ex-wife. And whatever Morgan's situation is, that's her problem. She signed the papers. Adults live with their choices. She's pregnant. That stopped him. For just a second, his mask slipped. That's not my... It's yours. 3 months. Right around the time you were busy annulling your marriage and posting honeymoon photos. His jaw tightened. Even if that's true, and I seriously doubt it, Morgan and I were legally separated. Whatever she did after that is her business. You threw her out with no money, no car, no place to stay. Her key didn't work, Trevor. You changed the locks and left her on the street. She had options. She chose not to use them. What options? You took everything. The house, the accounts, the business. You made sure she had nothing. Trevor stepped forward, his face inches from mine. I built that business. I made it profitable. Morgan was just office help who happened to share your last name. And you? He smiled. You were a tired old man who couldn't hack it anymore. I did you a favor taking that weight off your shoulders. That's when I should have walked away. Should have let Owen handle it through the courts, kept my hands clean. But I'd spent 3 years watching my life disappear into Trevor's shell companies. 3 years living in a rented apartment and working night shifts while he posted photos of Caribbean vacations and rooftop parties. I shoved him. It wasn't much. Just a shoulder bump, the kind of thing that happens on job sites every day. But Trevor wasn't used to being pushed. He stumbled back, caught himself on the doorframe, and came at me with his hand raised. We collided in the hallway. Trevor was younger, but I'd spent 30 years hauling freight, and I still knew how to use my weight. I got an arm around his shoulders and drove him sideways into the wall. Pictures rattled. Something fell and shattered. What is going on out here? Kendra appeared in the doorway, phone in hand, already filming. She was exactly what I'd expected. Glossy, polished, wearing silk pajamas that probably cost more than my rent. Her eyes went wide when she saw us. Oh my God. Trevor, who is this? The crazy old stalker, Trevor spat, trying to break my grip. Call security. I'm her father. I looked straight at Kendra's phone camera. And you're the woman who married my daughter's husband while she was homeless and pregnant. Kendra's perfect face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You called her the starter wife, joked about her cheap clothes, posted pictures of their honeymoon while Morgan was sleeping in a shelter. Trevor, what is he? He's lying, Trevor said quickly. Too quickly. Morgan's unstable. She makes things up. Everyone knows that. I caught sight of papers on the counter inside the condo. Blueprints, what looked like invitation mock-ups. A glossy folder with Hayes Urban Renewal Gala printed on the front. Security boots echoed in the hallway. 2 guards appeared, both big, both looking ready for a fight. Sir, you need to leave, now. I let go of Trevor and stepped back, hands up. I'm going, just wanted to deliver a message. Trevor straightened his shirt, his face flushed. You're done in this town, old man. Everyone's going to know what you are. I smiled. Couldn't help it, because he still didn't understand. I was done the day I signed those papers, Trevor. Now I'm free to do whatever I want. The guards escorted me to the elevator. I went peacefully, but I kept my eyes on Trevor the whole way. Watched him watch me. Saw the uncertainty starting to creep in behind his anger. As the elevator doors closed, I heard Kendra's voice sharp with panic. Trevor, what the hell was he talking about? I rode down to the lobby, smiling. Owen Blake's office was in a renovated bank building in Ohio City, all exposed brick and industrial windows. He'd done well for himself since we'd last worked together. The furniture was nicer, the receptionist more polished, but Owen himself hadn't changed much. Same sharp eyes, same way of cutting through emotion to get at the facts. Morgan sat across from his desk, looking small and scared. Patricia sat next to her, holding her hand. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching Owen lay out options like a general planning a campaign. Here's what we're going to do, Owen said, spreading documents across his desk. First, we file for legal separation and divorce on your behalf, Morgan. Given the circumstances, the annulment Trevor obtained appears to have been fraudulent if you weren't properly served or informed. We can challenge it and simultaneously file for support. Can we do that? Morgan's voice was barely above a whisper. We can try. More importantly, we file for temporary spousal support and prenatal child support. Ohio law allows for support during pregnancy in certain circumstances, especially when there's clear abandonment and the father has means. He'll fight it. Of course he will, but here's the thing. Owen leaned forward. Trevor's built his entire image on being a family-oriented, community-minded developer. A public court case about abandoning a pregnant wife to homelessness? That's lethal to his brand. What about the baby? Patricia asked. What if he claims it's not his? DNA test after birth will resolve that. But given the timeline and the fact that they were married when the child was conceived, the presumption of paternity is strong. Trevor will have to prove it's not his, which means admitting to a lot of things he probably doesn't want public. Owen pulled out another set of papers. We document everything. The eviction, the emptied accounts, the property sales. We get testimony from people who saw Morgan homeless. We show a pattern of financial abuse and abandonment. Morgan was crying quietly. I don't want to go through a trial. I can't face him in court. You might not have to, Owen said gently. Men like Trevor settle when the alternative is public humiliation. We're going to make the alternative very, very public. After the meeting, Patricia took Morgan home to her place. I stayed behind. Tell me the rest, I said to Owen. He smiled. You know me too well. He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo of Trevor's upcoming investor gala. This event is critical for him. He's launching a new development project, trying to attract backing from some serious money. His reputation has to be spotless. And if it's not, investors get nervous, banks get cautious. The whole thing could collapse. Owen looked at me carefully. I can handle the legal side, but if you want this to really hurt, you need to hit him where he lives, his image. I'm listening. That building he lives in? The Apex. You know anyone who works there? I thought about it. Maybe. There was a guy, Riley Park. Used to work logistics at one of the warehouses I supplied. Had a problem with a shipment once. Messed up the manifests, could have gotten fired. I helped him clean it up. What's he do now? Last I heard, building operations. Could be anywhere. Owen made a note. Find out. Someone on the inside of that building could be very useful. That evening, I tracked down Riley through an old contact. Turned out he was the operations manager at the Apex. We met at a diner in Lakewood, one of those 24-hour places with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that could strip paint. Riley looked older than I remembered, more gray in his hair, lines around his eyes, but he recognized me immediately. Harlan Vance, heard you fell on hard times. Could say the same about a lot of people. Yeah, he poured sugar into his coffee. What do you need? I told him. Not everything, but enough. Riley listened, his face carefully neutral. That's Trevor Hayes you're talking about, Unit 23E. That's right. And your daughter, she's the one who used to live there? Until he threw her out. Riley stirred his coffee, thinking. Finally, he said, I can't break any laws, can't give you keys or access codes or anything that would get me fired. Understood. But if someone wanted to know when certain areas are less monitored, say during shift changes or maintenance windows, that's just information. Public knowledge, really. Really. He pulled out a napkin and started sketching. The building has a service entrance at the loading dock. Security changes at 2:15 and 6:30. During those 15 minutes, coverage is thinner. The service elevator requires a key card, but the freight elevator just needs the right timing. What about the upper floors? 23rd floor has a ballroom, gets rented for events. Next one is, he checked his phone, week from Saturday. Big investor thing for Hayes Urban Renewal. Security will be focused on the ballroom level during setup. Cameras? Everywhere, but there are blind spots if you know where to look. He pointed to his sketch. Northwest stairwell, storage areas, and during events, cameras get focused on the party, not the service corridors. I studied the napkin. Why are you helping me? Riley met my eyes. Because I've got a daughter, too, and if some piece of trash threw her out pregnant, I'd want someone to have my back. He stood up. Be smart, Harlan. Don't do anything that can't be undone. After he left, I sat in that diner booth, drinking terrible coffee and planning. 2 days later, Owen called. We filed everything. Divorce petition, temporary support motion, the works. Trevor's lawyers responded fast. And? They're claiming Morgan is mentally unstable, that she's fabricating the pregnancy to extort money. They're threatening to file harassment charges against you for the incident at his condo. Let them. There's more. They sent over a PR statement. Looks like Kendra's work. Professional hit job on both you and Morgan. They're ready to leak it to local media if we don't back off. Do they know about the gala? I'd assume so. Why? Because that's when we hit them, in front of everyone. Owen was quiet for a moment. That's risky, Harlan. Everything's risky. At least this way, we control the timing. All right, I'll prepare the documents. But Harlan, make sure you're ready for what comes next. Once you do this, there's no going back. I know, I said. That's the point. The first shot came 3 days later. I was at work, halfway through the night shift, when my phone started buzzing. Text after text, calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I finally checked during my break and felt my stomach drop. Someone had leaked the story to a local gossip blog, the kind that feeds on drama and scandal. The headline read, "Developer Trevor Hayes targeted by unstable ex and her toxic father." The article was a masterpiece of manipulation. It painted Morgan as an unhinged gold digger who'd used her father's failing business as a stepping stone before attempting to trap Trevor with a questionable pregnancy claim. I was described as an alcoholic with anger problems who had aggressively confronted Trevor at his home after losing my company due to my own mismanagement. There were photos, old ones of me from my drinking days, red-faced, glassy-eyed, slumped at a bar. Screenshots of text Morgan had sent Trevor, taken out of context to make her sound desperate and threatening. Even a statement from an anonymous source close to the couple, saying Trevor had wanted to help Morgan but feared for his safety. At the bottom, a carefully worded line. Hayes' representatives declined to comment, citing privacy concerns and ongoing legal matters. I called Morgan. She answered on the first ring, her voice thick with tears. "Dad, have you seen—" "I saw. Are you okay?" "No, they're calling me crazy. They're saying I'm making up the pregnancy. Mom's getting calls at the clinic. Someone posted our address online. This is—" She broke down. I heard Patricia in the background, saying something soothing. "Morgan, listen to me. This is what they do. They're scared, so they're attacking. It means we're getting to them." "Well, it's working. I can't do this, Dad. Maybe we should just drop it. Maybe I should just—" "No. But you and this baby are not their PR props. We're not backing off." There was a long silence. Then quietly, "Okay." After I hung up, I sat in my truck, staring at that blog post. Felt the old anger rising, the kind that used to get me in trouble back when whiskey was my solution to everything. But I wasn't that man anymore. I'd learned to channel it, control it, use it. I made some calls, found out Trevor had a project on the east side, an old apartment block being cleared for luxury condos, the kind of development that pushed out longtime residents to make room for people who could afford granite countertops and rooftop yoga. I drove over on my day off. The site was chaos. Trucks everywhere, workers in hard hats, the sound of jackhammers and backup beepers. I parked across the street and watched. That's when I saw the old woman. She was maybe 70, small and bent, standing on the sidewalk with a walker while two guys in suits and a security guard crowded around her. One of the suits was holding papers, talking fast, gesturing at the building behind them. The woman was shaking her head, but I could see from her body language she was losing. I crossed the street. "Everything okay here?" The security guard turned. "Private property. Keep moving." "Looks like public sidewalk to me." I looked at the woman. "Ma'am, you all right?" "They're trying to make me sign something. Say I have to relocate by end of month, or they'll—" "She's being compensated fairly," the suit interrupted. "This is a private matter." I looked at the papers in his hand. "You Hayes' people?" His expression shifted slightly. "We represent Hayes Urban Renewal, yes. And you are?" "Someone who knows what a relocation scam looks like." The security guard stepped forward. "Sir, I'm going to ask you one more time. I'm not on your property. I'm talking to this lady on a public sidewalk. That a problem?" Behind us, I heard an engine rev. One of the bulldozers was moving toward the building, its blade already raised. The operator couldn't see the sidewalk clearly. Couldn't see us. I moved. I ran across the construction yard, ignoring the shouts behind me. The dozer was 10 feet from the building when I reached it. I grabbed the emergency kill cord and yanked it hard. The engine sputtered and stopped. The operator, a big guy with a red face, leaned out. "What the hell, man?" "You almost ran over 3 people. I can see fine from up here." "No, you can't. Look." He looked, saw the old woman and the suits on the sidewalk, partially blocked by a parked truck. His face went pale. By then, security was on me. 2 guards, both younger and heavier than me. The first one grabbed my arm. I twisted free and backed up against the truck, hands up. "Easy, nobody needs to get hurt." "You're trespassing." "I'm preventing an accident." I raised my voice so the workers could hear. "This is a Hayes project, right? Trevor Hayes? Same guy who threw his pregnant wife out on the street. Now he's bulldozing grandmas." The workers were watching now. A few had their phones out. "That's a lie." "It's all over the blogs. Google it. Trevor Hayes, real estate developer. Ask him about Morgan Vance." The security guards looked at each other, uncertain. That's when one of them made a mistake. He grabbed my shoulder hard, trying to drag me toward the exit. I shifted my weight, using his momentum against him. We both went down in the dirt, grappling. His partner jumped in, and suddenly it was chaos. 3 of us rolling around, dust flying, someone's elbow catching my ribs. A supervisor blew a whistle. "Break it up! Break it up!" We separated, all of us breathing hard. I was going to feel that tomorrow. The first security guard pointed at me. "You're done. We're calling the cops." "Go ahead." I pulled out my phone. "I'll show them the video of you trying to assault me for warning your operator about pedestrians." I didn't actually have video, but he didn't know that. The supervisor, a tired-looking guy in a safety vest, held up his hands. "Everyone calm down. Sir, you need to leave. Now." I looked around. At least a dozen workers had their phones out now. The whole thing was probably on Instagram already. Fine, just doing my civic duty. I looked at the old woman, who was being helped away by one of the other residents. "Ma'am, call legal aid before you sign anything. They're free." As I walked back to my truck, I heard one of the workers say, "Wasn't that the guy from the article? The dad?" "Yeah, guess he's not so crazy after all." I drove away smiling. The video surfaced on social media that night. Someone had put it together, me yanking the emergency cord, the guards attacking me, my line about Trevor kicking out his pregnant wife. Within 12 hours, it had 50,000 views and a hashtag Chusser Slumlord Hayes. Local news picked it up. Not the big stations, but the community outlets. Controversial developer's project site becomes viral video. The story included links to the gossip blog about Morgan, which meant people started connecting the dots. Trevor's carefully constructed image was starting to crack. 2 nights later, I noticed the tail. Black SUV, tinted windows, staying 2 or 3 cars back as I drove home from my shift. I'd been in logistics long enough to recognize a tail. The question was whether to lose them or see what they wanted. I chose option 2. Instead of heading to my apartment, I took a turn toward the old warehouse district, pulled into a multi-level parking garage that I knew was under renovation, half the lights out, entire levels closed for repairs. The kind of place where things could get ugly without witnesses. The SUV followed me up the ramp. I kept climbing. Level 3, 4, 5. The lights got sparser, shadows deeper. My headlights swept across support pillars and empty parking spaces marked with orange cones. Level 6 was completely dark. The power was out for the renovation. I pulled into a corner space, turned off my lights, and waited. The SUV's headlights appeared 30 seconds later. It crawled forward, searching. I could see 2 shapes in the front seats. I started my engine. The SUV stopped. For a moment, we just sat there in the darkness, engines idling. Then I floored it. My truck shot backward out of the space. The SUV tried to swerve, but I'd already cut the wheel. My rear bumper caught their front quarter panel with a crunch of metal. The impact spun them sideways. I shifted to drive and accelerated toward the down ramp. Behind me, the SUV recovered and gave chase. The garage was a maze of sharp turns and concrete pillars. I used every trick I knew, taking corners tight, using the support columns to block their line of sight, slamming on the brakes suddenly to mess with their timing. On level 4, they tried to trap me near a dead end cordoned off for construction. I waited until the last second, then reversed hard into a space so tight they couldn't follow. They had to keep going straight. I heard them curse as they passed. I took the service ramp down, steeper, narrower, meant for maintenance vehicles. They couldn't follow in the SUV. By the time they'd turned around, I was already on level 2, heading for the exit. One more trick. As I rounded the corner near a renovation zone, I spotted a stack of loose lumber and orange barriers. I clipped them with my bumper, sending boards and cones tumbling across the ramp behind me. The SUV hit the mess at speed. I heard the scrape of wood on metal, the hiss of a blown tire. In my rearview mirror, I saw them fishtailing, trying to regain control. I made it to the exit and didn't stop until I was 10 blocks away. Pulled over in a 24-hour gas station parking lot, hands shaking on the wheel. My heart was hammering. I checked the mirror, no sign of pursuit. But they'd found me, Trevor's people, and they'd been willing to corner me in a dark garage to do God knows what, which meant I was getting close. I sat there for a long time, breathing, watching cars pass on the street. Normal people living normal lives while I played demolition derby with hired muscle. Finally, I pulled out my phone and called Owen. "They're escalating," I told him. "Just tried to corner me in a parking garage." "Did you get plates?" "Too dark, but they were professional. Trevor's not just trying to win in court anymore." Owen was quiet for a moment. "The hearing's in 2 days. Everything's ready. Harlan, if you want to back off, I wouldn't blame you." "No." "They could do worse than follow you." "I know, but I've been scared before. Didn't stop me then, won't stop me now." I looked at the gas station lights reflecting in a puddle. "How's Morgan?" "Tired, scared. Patricia's keeping her close. The baby's fine, according to her last checkup. Good. That's all that matters. After I hung up, I sat in my truck and thought about Trevor Hayes and his glass tower, about Kendra with her perfect Instagram life, about how both of them thought they could make this go away with lawyers and hired muscle and carefully worded PR statements. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I'd spent 30 years making sure freight got where it needed to go. No matter the weather, the traffic, the obstacles, you learn to be patient, to plan, to find the weak spots and exploit them. Trevor had weak spots. I'd seen them. Now I just had to press. 2 days. The hearing was in 2 days. After that, the real game would begin. The Cuyahoga County Justice Center was a gray monolith downtown, all concrete and security checkpoints. I met Owen in the lobby at 8:30, both of us dressed in our best approximation of professional, him in a suit that actually fit, me in khakis and a button-down that Patricia had ironed. Morgan arrived with Patricia 5 minutes later. She was wearing a simple dress, no makeup, her belly clearly visible now. She looked exhausted and terrified, but she held her head up as we walked through security. "Ready?" Owen asked her. "No, but let's do it anyway." The family court waiting area was crowded with lawyers and anxious-looking people clutching folders. We found seats near the window. I watched the door, waiting. Trevor arrived at 9, exactly. He'd brought 3 lawyers, all in expensive suits. Kendra was with him, dressed like she was going to a business lunch, tailored, polished, projecting confidence. She saw Morgan and her lip curled slightly. Trevor's lead lawyer, a sharp-faced woman named something like Davidson or Davis, immediately approached Owen. "We'd like to discuss settlement before we go in." "I'm listening." "My client is willing to offer a modest support payment in exchange for dropping all claims related to the marriage, property, and paternity." "How modest?" $500 per month. Final offer." Owen didn't even blink. "Your client abandoned a pregnant woman on the street, emptied her bank accounts, sold marital property without disclosure, and married someone else while claiming an annulment. $500 per month doesn't even cover prenatal vitamins." "My client disputes the characterization of abandonment. Ms. Vance had options. She had nothing. Your client made sure of that." Owen smiled, cold as winter. "See you in there." The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, a tired-looking bailiff checking his watch. The judge, a woman in her 50s named Ramirez, came in right at 9:30, and we all stood. "Let's keep this brief," Judge Ramirez said. "This is a preliminary hearing on emergency temporary support. Mr. Blake, you filed?" Owen stood. "Yes, Your Honor. Our petition outlines a clear pattern of abandonment and financial abuse. Ms. Vance was evicted from marital property without warning, her joint accounts emptied, and she was left homeless while 3 months pregnant. Meanwhile, Mr. Hayes maintains a luxury lifestyle with substantial income from his development business. He laid out the evidence methodically. Photos of Morgan on the street, which Patricia had taken on her phone the night I brought her home. Bank statements showing the joint account drain, copies of the eviction notice and property sale documents. Medical records confirming the pregnancy. Trevor's lawyer countered. Your Honor, Mr. Hayes maintains that the marriage was legally annulled prior to any alleged pregnancy. Ms. Vance has a history of mental health struggles and financial instability. We believe this claim is an attempt to extract money through false allegations. Do you have proof the pregnancy is false? We're requesting a DNA test. After birth, yes, standard procedure, but the timeline shows conception during the marriage. What about the living situation? Ms. Vance had family resources. She chose not to use them. Judge Ramirez looked at Morgan. Ms. Vance, do you want to speak? Morgan stood slowly. Her voice was quiet but steady. I helped my husband take everything from my father. My childhood home, the business my dad built. I believed Trevor when he said we were building something together. When he said I'd be taken care of, I signed papers I didn't fully understand because I trusted him. She paused, one hand on her belly. When he threw me out, I had nowhere to go. I didn't want to burden my father after what I'd done to him, but I had no choice. Trevor sold our home, emptied our accounts, and married someone else, all without telling me. I didn't even know about the annulment until it was final. Your Honor, Trevor's lawyer started. I'm not finished. Judge Ramirez's voice was sharp. Ms. Vance, I just want my baby to be safe, to have food and shelter and medical care. That's all. She sat down. The courtroom was quiet. Judge Ramirez looked at the papers in front of her, then at Trevor. Mr. Hayes, do you dispute that you and Ms. Vance were married when this pregnancy occurred? Trevor stood. Your Honor, the annulment... Answer the question. Were you married when the child was conceived? Technically, yes, but... And did you provide any financial support after filing for annulment? The annulment meant... Did you provide support? Yes or no? Trevor's jaw tightened. No. Did you inform Ms. Vance of the property sale before it occurred? That wasn't required. It's a yes or no question, Mr. Hayes. No. Judge Ramirez made a note. Then she looked up. Here's what we're going to do. Temporary order. Mr. Hayes will pay all prenatal medical expenses retroactive to the date of filing. He will also pay temporary spousal support in the amount of $3,000 per month, plus $2,000 per month for the child once born, subject to DNA confirmation but presumed until proven otherwise. These amounts are temporary and subject to modification at full hearing, but they are effective immediately. Trevor's face went red. Your Honor, that's fair. That's what it is. Mr. Hayes, you maintained a six-figure lifestyle while your pregnant wife was homeless. The optics are bad, and frankly, so are the facts. If you don't like this order, you're welcome to appeal. But until then, you're going to write some checks. She banged her gavel. Next case. Outside, in the hallway, Trevor lost it. This is insane. You're all insane. His lawyers tried to calm him down, but he shook them off. Spotted Morgan standing with Patricia and Owen. You think you've won? He was nearly shouting now. I'll destroy you, both of you. Your reputations, your lives, everything. I'll make sure everyone knows what you are. A gold-digging liar and her washed-up failure of a father. Mr. Hayes, one of his lawyers started, but Trevor was on a roll. That baby probably isn't even mine. You're just trying to shake me down, and everyone's going to see it. My event tomorrow night, I'm going to stand up there and tell the truth about both of you. Every investor, every journalist, everyone who matters in this city is going to know exactly what kind of people you are. He turned to his lawyers. Get that order overturned. I don't care what it costs. They hustled him toward the elevators. Kendra followed, her face tight with anger. But I noticed something. She'd heard Trevor's rant. Heard him call the baby probably not mine, saw him lose control in public, and she didn't look happy about it. Owen handed me an envelope. Copies of the order and formal notice. You know what to do with these? I knew. See you tomorrow night, I said. Morgan hugged Patricia, then turned to me. Dad, are you sure about this? Maybe we should just... Tomorrow night, I repeated gently. Trust me. She did. I saw it in her eyes. Despite everything, despite all the ways I'd failed her before, she trusted me now. I just hoped I was worth it. The Hayes Urban Renewal Gala was scheduled for 7 p.m. Saturday at the Apex's ballroom level. An evening of vision and community, according to the invitation Owen had obtained through his network. Tickets were $1,000 a plate, with VIP access for major investors and local press. Trevor was betting everything on this event. New development projects needed capital, and capital needed confidence. He'd positioned himself as the city's next big success story. Self-made, visionary, committed to community. The kind of developer who could be trusted with millions. One public scandal could unravel all of it. I met Riley at that same diner Friday night. He slid a folder across the table. Building layouts, service elevator codes, security rotations for tomorrow night. He tapped the folder. There's a 15-minute window during hors d'oeuvres when most security will be focused on the VIP reception area. Service corridors will be minimally covered. The alarm test? Scheduled for 7:45. Fire system check? Perfectly routine. Screens might glitch for a few seconds. Nothing major, but it'll create a distraction. And the loading dock? Service entrance is open until 8 for catering deliveries. After that, it's keycard only. He pulled out a temporary access card. This gets you and 2 guests through until midnight. Then it deactivates. I looked at the card. Riley, if this goes wrong, it won't. And if it does, you got it from someone else. I've got plausible deniability. He finished his coffee. My daughter's 15. I keep thinking about what I'd do if someone like Trevor Hayes came into her life. He met my eyes. Make it count. After he left, I studied the documents, memorized the layout. The timing had to be perfect. I called Owen. We're set for tomorrow. Morgan's nervous. She's not sure she can face him again. She won't have to face him alone. We'll all be there. Harlan, if this backfires? Then it backfires. But Trevor made a mistake today in that hallway. He showed everyone what he really is. Tomorrow night, we're just going to make sure more people see it. Saturday arrived gray and cold. I picked up Patricia and Morgan at 5. Morgan was wearing a simple black dress that Patricia had bought, her belly unmistakable. She looked terrified. I'm going to be sick, she whispered. No, you're not. You're going to walk in there with your head up, and you're going to show everyone what Trevor Hayes did. What if they don't believe me? They'll believe you. I squeezed her hand. Trust your old man one more time. Owen met us in the parking garage at 6:30. He was carrying a briefcase and wearing his best trial suit. Everyone clear on the plan? We nodded. Good. Patricia, you'll wait in the lobby. If anything goes wrong, you get Morgan out immediately. Harlan and I will go up with Morgan at 7:45, right when the alarm test starts. We come in through the service entrance, walk straight to the ballroom. Owen does the talking. I hand over the documents, and we leave. Simple. Nothing about this is simple, Patricia muttered, but she hugged Morgan tight before we separated. The three of us took the service elevator up at 7:43. The corridors were quiet, just the distant sound of music and conversation from the ballroom. Through the service windows, I could see caterers moving back and forth, waiters carrying champagne. At 7:45 exactly, we heard the chirp of the fire alarm test. The lights flickered. Somewhere a screen glitched. We walked through the service doors into the ballroom. The ballroom was everything Trevor would want. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake, crystal chandeliers, tables covered in white linens, maybe 200 people in expensive suits and cocktail dresses, all turned toward the stage where Trevor stood at a podium. He was in the middle of his speech. Behind him, a massive screen showed photos of his developments, interspersed with shots of him at charity events, shaking hands with city officials, smiling that perfect smile. Building not just homes, but communities, places where families can thrive, where the next generation can grow. That's what Hayes Urban Renewal is all about. Vision with heart, progress with purpose. Kendra stood off to the side, elegant in a navy dress, watching the crowd with a professional's eye. A few journalists clustered near the front, cameras ready. Investors filled the VIP section, the kind of people who wrote seven-figure checks. The alarm chirped once more. The screen flickered, showing static for a second. Heads turned, murmuring. That's when we walked in. The back doors of the ballroom opened, and Morgan stepped through, visibly pregnant, flanked by Owen in his lawyer suit and me in my pressed khakis. Every eye in the room turned toward us. I heard someone whisper, "Who is that?" Someone else. "Is that the woman from the article?" Trevor saw us. His face went white, then red. He stopped mid-sentence. Security. But Owen was already moving forward, his voice carrying across the room. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption. My name is Owen Blake, attorney at law. I'm here on behalf of my client, Morgan Vance. He gestured to Morgan. Some of you may recognize Ms. Vance. She's Mr. Hayes' wife, the one he evicted while she was 3 months pregnant, the one he left homeless while living in this building, the one he told you didn't exist. The murmurs grew louder. Phones came out. Journalists moved closer. Trevor found his voice. This is a private event. You're trespassing. We're serving legal documents. Owen pulled papers from his briefcase. Yesterday, a judge issued a temporary support order requiring Mr. Hayes to pay prenatal expenses and spousal support. The judge's remarks specifically noted the abandonment of a pregnant spouse and the appearance of financial abuse. He started reading from the order, his voice clear and professional. The court finds credible evidence that the respondent systematically stripped the petitioner of financial resources, evicted her from marital property without adequate provision, and maintained a 6-figure lifestyle while she was homeless. The room was silent now, except for Owen's voice. On the stage, Trevor's carefully constructed image was crumbling in real time, but I wasn't done. I stepped forward, my voice rough but carrying. Sorry to interrupt, folks. When a man talks about building homes for families, I thought you should meet the woman he threw out of hers. Trevor's face twisted with rage. You have no right. I have every right. I'm her father, and you're the man who married my daughter's husband while she was sleeping in a shelter. I looked at Kendra. Mrs. Sloan, did Trevor tell you Morgan was pregnant when he married you? Did he mention leaving her on the street? Kendra's polished expression cracked. I don't. Trevor, what is he talking about? He's lying. I'm not. I pulled out my phone, pulled up the screenshots Morgan had saved. I've got text messages. A Trevor talking about you being temporary PR arm candy. Planning to trade up once your media contacts were used up. Want me to read them out loud, or should we just put them on the big screen? Riley had come through again. The ballroom screen suddenly switched from Trevor's promotional images to my phone's display. The text filled the wall-sized screen, every word visible to every guest. The crowd gasped. Someone laughed nervously. Journalists started taking photos. Kendra read the messages, her face going from confusion to fury in seconds. The texts were brutal. Trevor discussing her like a business asset, rating her usefulness, joking about her age with his buddies. She turned to Trevor, and I saw the moment she understood. Everything. The lies, the manipulation, the way he'd used her the same way he'd used Morgan, the same way he used everyone. You told me she abandoned you, Kendra said, her voice shaking. You said she was unstable, that she'd made everything up. Kendra, let me explain. She slapped him. Right there on stage, in front of everyone. The crack of her palm against his cheek echoed through the silent ballroom. Enjoy paying for the baby you left on the sidewalk? She walked off the stage, her heels clicking on the wood. Walked right past us and out the door without looking back. Trevor stood there, face red from the slap and the humiliation, watching his carefully built life collapse. Investors, journalists, and dozens of phones were recording everything. Then he looked at me, snapped, and charged off the stage in a rage, fists up, shouting about lawyers and money. I stepped aside. Years on the docks teach you simple moves. He tripped on a sound cable and crashed to his knees in front of the first row. Feedback shrieked as the mic stand fell. Security rushed in, but the whole room was already filming Trevor Hayes on his knees, furious and defeated. Owen calmly handed him an envelope. You've been served, Mr. Hayes. Temporary support order. Congratulations, you're finally paying for a home instead of stealing one. I crouched close enough for the nearby phones to hear. You left my daughter on the concrete. Now the whole city saw you hit your knees. Behind me, Morgan cried with relief as Patricia held her. Owen was already answering reporters. I walked away from Trevor without looking back. We took the service elevator down. In the parking garage, Owen shook his head. That was insane. That was necessary. His lawyers will come after you. Let them. Everything was legal. Not our fault he couldn't control himself. Owen smirked. That video will be everywhere by morning. Good. Maybe men will think twice before throwing pregnant women out. I drove Morgan and Patricia home through the dark Cleveland streets. Morgan sat quietly, one hand on her belly, Patricia holding the other. Is it over? Morgan asked. The legal fight is starting, but the important part? I met her eyes in the mirror. Yeah, Trevor will pay support, and everyone knows what he did. Thank you, Dad. I just drove, remembering the night I found her on the street, and how close we came to losing everything, but we hadn't. We'd won, not with money or influence, but the way ordinary people win, by being tougher and refusing to stay down. At Patricia's house, we settled into the living room like a family again. What happens now? Morgan asked. Now you have your baby, Patricia said. Trevor pays support. We move forward. And you, Dad? I'll be right here, I said, as long as you need me. Morgan finally smiled. Truly smiled. I think we're going to be okay. I know we are. Somewhere in the city, Trevor was dealing with the wreckage of his reputation. Investors fleeing, lawyers panicking. Kendra was deleting photos, rewriting her story. But in Patricia's living room, we were 3 people still standing. I'd lost my business and my house to Trevor's manipulation. But I got my daughter back, and my grandchild would grow up knowing one thing. When the world knocks you down, you get back up. That victory was worth everything.